She thought it was just another rainy night. A delivery girl, soaked to the bone, rushed home to her sick father, until she saw a man collapsing on the sidewalk. She had no idea who he was. No clue he was the richest, most powerful man in the state. She only knew one thing. He needed help, and she couldn't walk away. But what she didn't realize, that one act of kindness would rewrite her entire destiny. It was just past 9 p.m. when the skies over Greenfield cracked with thunder. Rain poured down in sheets, washing the narrow streets of the working-class district in silver and shadow. Most shop signs had already gone dark. Street vendors folded their umbrellas. The world was going to sleep, except for one girl. Lily ran barefoot across the muddy sidewalk, clutching a plastic bag filled with discounted painkillers and soup packets. Her clothes were soaked. Her hoodie, too thin for the season, clung to her like a second skin. She wasn't heading home from a party or a cafe. She was heading from the pharmacy back to her sick father, whose fever had spiked again. She didn't notice the black car parked slightly askew near the alley, until she heard the noise. A groan. Not loud, but raw and broken. Lily stopped, heart racing. Another groan, this time followed by a heavy thud. She dropped her bag and turned toward the source of the sound. At the edge of the alley, crumpled against the brick wall, was a man. Mid-40s, drenched, pale, one hand gripping his chest. His breath came in short, shallow gasps. "Sir?" Lily called out. No answer. She took a cautious step forward. "Are you okay?" Still no answer, just pain. She rushed toward him and knelt down. "Can you hear me?" His lips moved, but the words were slurred. She touched his forehead, burning hot. His skin was cold and clammy, and his pulse irregular and racing. His suit, though soaked and wrinkled, looked expensive. Custom cut. Definitely not someone from her side of town. But none of that mattered. She knew what a failing body looked like. She'd seen it too many times. "You're going into shock," she whispered, scanning her surroundings. No one, no taxis, no time. Her phone was dead. The man needed help now, not tomorrow, not in an hour. Without thinking twice, Lily tore open her pharmacy bag and pulled out a small vial of ammonia she kept for her father's episodes. She cracked it beneath his nose. He flinched, coughing weakly. His eyes fluttered open for a second. "Stay with me," Lily said. "Just breathe. You'll be okay." His hand tightened around hers. She leaned in close, shielding his head from the rain with her jacket. "I'm going to take you somewhere safe, okay?" "Don't call anyone," he gasped. Lily frowned. "You need a hospital." "No," he coughed. "Please, just somewhere quiet." She hesitated. This was madness. He was a stranger, and yet, something in his eyes, a flicker of trust, of desperation, cut past every fear she had. "Okay," she said softly. "There's an old shed near my building. No one will find us there." With every ounce of strength, she helped him to his feet, guiding him slowly, painfully through the back alleyways of Greenfield. His body was heavy, but she didn't stop. She couldn't. 15 minutes later, they reached a rusted metal door near her tenement building. It used to be a janitor's closet, long abandoned. She forced it open and pulled him inside. The air was damp, but dry. A single flickering light bulb buzzed above. She found an old mattress and eased him onto it. "You're safe now," she whispered. His breathing slowed. She wrapped him in an old blanket, tucked her jacket beneath his head, and placed a damp cloth on his forehead. As she sat beside him, listening to the sound of rain against the roof, she had no idea who he really was. No idea that the man lying half-conscious beside her owned more land, money, and power than anyone in the state. She only knew one thing. She couldn't leave him. Not because he was rich, but because he was human. And somehow, in the middle of a storm, two lives had just collided in a way that neither of them would ever forget. Morning came slow and gray over Greenfield. The rain had passed, but puddles still reflected the rusting fire escapes and faded window blinds. In the abandoned janitor's shed behind Lily's building, warmth came not from the cracked walls or thin mattress, but from the girl seated beside him, her head nodding with exhaustion. The man stirred. His eyes blinked open to a low ceiling, then darted toward the blurred figure slouched beside him. He sat up too fast. Pain stabbed through his chest. He groaned. Lily jerked awake. "Hey, easy," Don't move too quickly." He looked around, confused. "Where am I?" "You passed out in the rain," she said gently. "I didn't have time to call anyone. You begged me not to. So, I brought you here." He tried to speak. She handed him a cup of warm water, which he drank slowly. "You were burning up," she added. "High fever, possible infection, and your heartbeat was off. You're lucky I didn't listen to you and gave you fever meds anyway." The man let out a quiet laugh, hoarse and breathless. "You saved me." Lily shrugged. "It's nothing. You'd have done the same." He looked at her carefully, as if trying to figure out whether she was real. "No, most people wouldn't, especially not for a stranger in an alley." She met his gaze with calm eyes. "You weren't just a stranger. You were in pain." He nodded slowly. "What's your name?" "Lily." A pause. "What's yours?" she asked. He hesitated, then smiled faintly. "Alex." It wasn't a lie, but it wasn't the full truth either. Because Alex wasn't just any man. His full name was Alexander Kane Cross, the elusive billionaire investor behind the state's largest infrastructure firm, 2 hospitals, and a dozen private charities. A man known by name but rarely seen. He shunned interviews, red carpets, and headlines. Most people speculated he lived abroad. Some believed he had retired. But none knew that last week his personal doctor warned him of a stress-induced cardiac episode waiting to happen, and he had ignored it. Instead, he chose to disappear, to drive himself, unguarded, in the middle of a storm, needing silence more than safety. He wasn't running from illness. He was running from the life that came with it. But last night, the storm didn't let him hide, and neither did Lily. Hours later, while Lily slipped out to buy more medicine and check on her father upstairs, Alex stood in the tiny shed alone, staring at the stained walls. His tailored suit hung on a nail, still soaked. His phone, dead. His mind, racing. He hadn't told anyone where he was going. Not his assistant, not his board, not even the woman he was scheduled to marry in 6 weeks. Though that engagement was more public relations than passion. He looked down at the folded blanket she had covered him with. The way she had cooled his fever, watched over him without sleep. No cameras, no money, no reason. It rattled him. People only helped him for gain. But Lily didn't even know who he was. And even if she had, he somehow knew. She still would have stayed. When she returned, she handed him warm soup and a fresh shirt. One of her father's old ones. Alex put it on. It didn't fit right. But somehow, it felt better than any $5,000 silk he'd ever worn. "So what happens now?" she asked as he sipped the soup. "You want me to drop you off somewhere?" Alex paused. His usual response would be to vanish, to return to his penthouse, silence the media, and forget this chapter ever happened. But this time, he didn't want to forget. He wanted to know who she really was. "No," he said. "If it's all right, I'd like to see you again." Lily looked surprised. "See me? Just to say thank you, properly, maybe dinner?" Lily chuckled. "I don't do suits and candlelight." "Neither do I," Alex said with a smile. "Not anymore." She raised an eyebrow. "You sure you're not someone important?" Alex shrugged. "Only if you think so." And for the first time in a long while, he wasn't lying to protect his status. He was hiding it. To protect the feeling that maybe, just maybe, this girl had saved more than his body. Maybe she'd just saved his soul. Lily returned to the third-floor apartment with a tired smile and a stitched-up paper bag of soup and antibiotics. The hallway smelled of damp carpet and mold, and the light bulb above their door flickered like it had for years. Her hands were cold, her wallet nearly empty, but she was used to that. Inside, the one-bedroom apartment looked the same as it had every day since her mother passed. Cramped, worn down, but neat. She had memorized every creak in the floorboard, every crack in the wall. This was her whole world. "Dad!" she called gently, stepping into the living room. Her father lay on the old couch, eyes shut, a damp rag on his forehead. His breathing was shallow but even. The fever had eased slightly overnight. She knelt beside him and brushed the hair off his brow. "I got you soup," she whispered. "And the good meds this time, not the expired ones from Mr. Tate's discount box." He didn't answer, but his hand found hers and squeezed lightly. She smiled. Moments later, she moved into the kitchen and began washing dishes in a basin. There hadn't been running hot water in months. The landlord promised repairs. He always promised. But promises didn't boil water or fix broken heating coils in winter. Still, she didn't complain. That afternoon, she changed into her secondhand jeans, tied her hair up in a knot, and slipped on her delivery uniform. It was faded and a little too tight at the shoulders, but it paid what little they had left. Her shifts were long, the tips inconsistent, and the scooter always threatened to break down. But she kept showing up. Lily was used to surviving. What she wasn't used to was someone checking in on her. So when her phone buzzed with a message from Alex, a simple, "Hope your dad's okay. Thank you again," she paused. A billionaire didn't text like that. A corporate executive wouldn't ask about her father, but Alex did. That evening, she made deliveries across town, past neon signs and potholes, past luxury condos she would never step foot in. On her last run, she passed the Kensington Row neighborhood. She always hated it. The place where wealth smelled different. The place where she used to bring groceries to spoiled girls who didn't even look her in the eye. That's where she saw Bianca Hartley again, an old schoolmate, now dripping in diamonds and disdain. Bianca stood on the steps of her luxury boutique, flanked by two friends who looked like magazine ads. "Lily," she said mockingly. "Wow, you're still doing deliveries?" Lily nodded, calm. "Still working hard, like always." Bianca laughed. "That's adorable. I thought you'd at least find a real job by now. But I guess charity cases can't be choosers." Lily gritted her teeth but kept her voice even. "Better to work than pretend your parents' money makes you important." "Ouch," Bianca sneered. "Careful, sweetheart. Envy wrinkles the face." Lily turned to leave. "Hey," Bianca called after her, voice laced with mock sweetness. "If you ever want to clean the back room, I might be hiring. Someone's got to scrub the marble floors." Lily walked away without responding. Because people like Bianca didn't deserve her energy. But it still stung. Back home, she didn't cry. She never did. Instead, she sat beside her father, fed him soup by spoonfuls, then curled into the armchair across the room. She stared out the window, thinking about the man in the shed. Alex, kind, calm, grateful, different. He didn't treat her like a joke. He saw her. She didn't know what he really did for a living, or why his clothes were custom stitched, or how his phone looked like something out of a commercial. But she did know one thing. She liked the way he made her feel. Not rich, not lucky, just human. And what she didn't know was that across the city, in a penthouse wrapped in glass and silence, Alexander Kane Cross sat in front of a monitor, watching security footage of the alley from that night. His assistant stood behind him, puzzled. "Sir, why are you watching this over and over?" Alex replied almost to himself. "Because I want to remember the moment someone saved me, without needing anything from me." He paused the video on a frame, Lily, soaking wet, leaning over his unconscious body, shielding him with her jacket. "Find out everything you can about her," he said softly, quietly, discreetly, "and fix anything in her life that's broken." The assistant hesitated. "Everything?" Alex didn't blink. "Everything." The first miracle came in the form of a letter, slipped under the door, no return address, sealed in a plain white envelope. Lily picked it up on her way out for her morning shift. She almost tossed it aside, thinking it was another late notice or a community center flyer, but something about the weight of the envelope made her stop. She opened it on the stairs, knees still stiff from sleeping in a chair. Her eyes scanned the page, then widened. It was a hospital voucher, not just any voucher. Full medical sponsorship for her father's treatment at Rose Hill Clinic, one of the top hospitals in the city. A handwritten note was attached on yellow stationery. "He deserves a chance to heal. No one should carry this weight alone. A friend." Her hands trembled. She looked around the hallway, as if the sender might be hiding just out of sight. No one. That night she walked her father to the hospital. They were skeptical at first, until they checked the system and confirmed the account. Everything was already approved. Room reserved, doctor assigned, payment guaranteed, no questions asked. She sat beside him in the private room, eyes misty, heart pounding. "Dad," she whispered, "I don't know how, but someone is looking out for us." Her father squeezed her hand weakly. "Then thank them for me. whoever they are. The second miracle was quieter, but just as powerful. It came in the form of a scooter. Lily's old one had finally given out. On her way back from work, it stuttered to a halt near a dumpster, then died completely. She pushed it 2 blocks home, shoulders aching. When she arrived, it was already dark. She parked the wreck beside the building and dragged herself upstairs. But in the morning, when she came back down, it was gone. In its place was a brand new scooter, sleek, black, polished, with her name painted on the side in clean white lettering. A single note was taped to the handlebars. "You've carried enough on your back. Let something carry you for once. A friend." She stood there for a long time, stunned. Her neighbor, old Mr. Colton, peeked out from his window and whistled. "Someone's got a guardian angel, huh?" Lily smiled faintly. "I think I do." And the blessings kept coming. At the diner where she worked part-time, her manager handed her an envelope. "Your tuition debt," he said. "What about it?" she asked. "Paid, completely. An anonymous donor called yesterday. Said you deserve to finish school if you ever chose to go back." She stood frozen. In the course of a week, the weight she had carried for years was lifting, one invisible hand at a time. She asked herself the same question over and over. Why me? And though she had no proof, a part of her suspected it all traced back to Alex. She hadn't seen him since the day he left the shed, but he texted once every few days. Just small things. "How's your dad today? Hope you ate something real. Do you still make that weird mint tea?" They never spoke about the favor or who he really was, but in the back of her mind, Lily felt something forming, something gentle, quiet, but real. And across town, Alexander Kane Cross sat alone in a glass office tower, watching the lights flicker across the city. His assistant had confirmed everything: the father's illness, the school loan, the broken scooter. He'd paid it all anonymously, but he didn't feel like a savior. He felt something else entirely. "She gave me peace in a moment of panic," he said aloud, eyes fixed on the skyline. "And I don't want to disappear from her life." His assistant looked up. "Would you like to see her again, sir?" Alex didn't answer right away, because this time it wasn't just about gratitude. It was about something more, something deeper, something he hadn't felt in a long, long time. The morning sun broke through the clouds over Lexington Square, where steel and stone whispered wealth on every corner. Lily had never meant to be there. She was only making a routine delivery to one of the estate houses, a special event order for a woman named Valerie Whitmore, a name that made florists stand straighter and caterers lower their gaze. Lily parked her new scooter carefully near the marble steps, smoothed out her uniform, and approached the front door carrying a tray of expensive appetizers and champagne flutes. She was tired, a little rushed, but grateful. Every job was a blessing. The maid barely opened the door before waving her in. "Kitchen," she said flatly. "Through the back, and be quick about it." Inside, the house was all mirrors, white marble, and chandeliers. Lily kept her eyes down and followed instructions. She placed the tray on the catering table and was about to leave when she heard someone shout behind her. "You, stop!" It was Valerie. She stood at the kitchen entrance in heels and diamonds, holding a crystal bracelet in her fingers. "Where did you get this?" Valerie hissed, storming toward Lily. Lily blinked, confused. What? This bracelet was on my vanity. Now it's missing. And suddenly it shows up in the pocket of a delivery girl?" She threw the bracelet onto the table. It clinked once and spun to a stop. Lily stepped back. "I didn't take anything." "Don't lie to me," Valerie snapped. "Security has already checked the staff. You were the last outsider in the house." "I don't even know what that is," Lily said, her voice shaking. "Search my bag, my pockets, anything." Valerie folded her arms. "Don't need to. Thieves always come with excuses." 2 security guards entered the kitchen. One stepped toward Lily. "You're making a mistake," she whispered. But her voice was drowned out by the sound of gossiping guests entering the hallway, drawn by the noise. Phones were already up, cameras recording. Valerie turned to the crowd. "Let this be a lesson to everyone. You can't trust people just because they smile sweetly. They will rob you blind." Lily's eyes burned. She wanted to speak, to defend herself, but no one was listening. Not until someone said, "That's enough." The room fell silent. Everyone turned. A man stood at the edge of the corridor, his black coat slightly damp from the outside drizzle, his eyes cold and unblinking. He stepped forward slowly, the crowd parting like water around him. Valerie's voice dropped an octave. "Alexander?" Lily froze. "Alex?" But the man before her wasn't the soft-voiced stranger from the alley. This was a man who owned buildings, not bedsheets, who made people step back with a glance, who belonged in every room she'd never dared to enter. He walked past Valerie, straight to Lily. "She didn't take anything?" he said calmly. Valerie scoffed. "You know her." He turned slowly. "She saved my life." Gasps echoed around the kitchen. The cameras swung to catch his every word. "She found me unconscious in the street, nursed me back to health, gave me her only blanket while I was burning up with fever. No hospitals, no cameras, just kindness." He looked around the room. "And this is how you treat her? A public trial? Over a bracelet you probably lost in your own vanity drawer?" Valerie's face went white. "Lily Morgan," he said, turning to her gently, "is the only person in this room who didn't want anything from me. And if anyone here thinks I'd let her be humiliated in front of strangers..." He faced Valerie again. "They clearly don't know who I am." The room fell dead silent. He stepped beside Lily. "We're leaving." Lily didn't move. She couldn't. You're Alexander Kane Cross," she finally whispered, her voice barely audible. He looked down at her and nodded. "I am. And I should have told you sooner. But I wanted you to see me as a person, not a title." He paused. "You gave me something I never expected, Lily. Honesty. I'm sorry it took so long for me to give it back." The guards stepped aside. The guests lowered their phones. Valerie looked like she might collapse. And just like that, the billionaire walked out with the delivery girl. Not in shame, not in scandal, but in silent victory. The car ride away from Lexington Square was quiet. Not the kind of silence filled with tension, but the kind where hearts beat too loud for words. Lily sat stiffly in the leather seat of Alexander's private car, one of those sleek, soundless machines that glided like a whisper over the pavement. She didn't touch the seat controls or admire the stitching. She just stared out the window, trying to make sense of everything that had just happened. Beside her, Alexander Kane Cross, sat quietly, his fingers laced in his lap. He didn't speak until they were halfway across the city. "I should have told you," he said softly, "from the first day, but I didn't want to scare you off." Lily kept her eyes forward. "You lied to me." "I did," he admitted, "but not because I wanted to deceive you. I just wanted one person to see me without the walls, without the legacy, without the money." "And now I'm supposed to what?" she said, finally turning to face him. "Pretend it doesn't matter?" "No," he said. "You're supposed to know that it never mattered to you in the first place. And that's what changed everything." The car slowed to a stop. Lily looked up. They weren't at her apartment. They were in front of Cross Foundation headquarters, a glass-walled campus that dominated the skyline, a place she had only ever seen in magazines and documentaries. The driver opened her door. She stepped out slowly, uncertain. Alexander walked beside her. Inside, the elevator rose quietly to the top floor. He led her through a set of private glass doors and into a room so open and high up, it felt like standing inside a cloud. Sunlight poured in through every angle, and in the center of the room, on a conference table, was a file folder with her name on it. Lily picked it up. "What is this?" she asked, not touching it. "A full scholarship to finish your degree," Alexander said. "A position on our wellness outreach team. Flexible hours. Your father's care. Covered. Indefinitely. And your name on something that finally reflects the value you already have." She didn't speak. He stepped closer. "Everything you gave me, I want to give back tenfold. Not out of pity. Not because I feel indebted, but because I believe in you." She looked at him. All her life, people had tried to define her worth by how little she had, how she dressed, where she lived, what she could offer in return. But he was looking at her like she was already priceless. Still, a part of her hesitated. "I don't know how to live in your world," she said quietly. "I don't know how to be. All of that." He smiled gently. "Then we'll build a new world," he said, "where you don't have to change who you are. Just grow into who you've always been." She looked down at the folder again. Tears welled in her eyes. For the first time, the door to something better wasn't slammed shut or locked. It was open, and she was being asked, not forced, to walk through it. That night, Lily returned to her apartment. Her father was sitting up in bed, smiling as she walked in. "You okay?" he asked. She nodded, barely. "I think I met someone who wants to change my life," she whispered. Her father looked at her, long and hard, then nodded. "No," he said softly. "You met someone who finally sees how you were meant to live it." Weeks passed, but the memory of that night, the humiliation, the reveal, the quiet power of Alexander standing beside her, never left Lily's mind. Neither did he. They met often now, not in grand halls or media-covered events, but in quiet spaces. Coffee shops tucked in corners, his private rooftop garden where the noise of the world didn't reach, the hospital where her father was recovering, where Alex showed up unannounced with puzzles and fresh flowers, never asking for attention. But Lily was not used to this. Not to kindness without strings, not to affection without expectation. One night they walked along the riverbank beneath the city skyline. The air was cool, the lights above them reflecting like stars in the water. Alexander had just finished telling her a story from his childhood, how his parents made him eat cereal with sparkling water because they were too above milk. And Lily had burst into laughter. She stopped now, staring at the river. "You're not like I imagined billionaires to be," she said quietly. Alex tilted his head. "What did you imagine?" "Cold, calculated, perfect teeth and fake words." He grinned. "I only have one of those." But she didn't smile back. She was staring too hard at the dark waves. He sobered. "What's wrong?" She turned to him slowly. "You say you believe in me," she said. "You offer me a job, school, a better life. But part of me still wonders why." His brow furrowed. "I told you. You saved me. I did what anyone with a heart would do." "No," he said firmly. "You did what most people wouldn't, and you didn't even ask who I was." She swallowed. "But now you know who I am, where I come from. You've seen my apartment. You've heard what people say. Do you still mean all this?" His answer was quiet but immediate. "Yes. Even if I never fit in your world?" "Then I'll fit into yours," he said. That made her laugh softly. "You in my world, you'd break your $800 shoes on the first cracked sidewalk." He stepped closer. "Then I'll walk barefoot." She looked up at him. The silence stretched. "Lily," he said, voice low, "this isn't about gratitude anymore. It stopped being that a long time ago." Her chest tightened. He continued, "I don't just admire your heart. I don't just respect your strength. I love you." She froze. He reached out but stopped just short of touching her. "You don't have to say it back. I know it's a lot. I know I waited too long, or maybe not long enough, but it's the truth. I've been surrounded by people who wanted my name, my money, my empire. And then you showed up, holding nothing, and giving everything." She blinked. Tears welled up. "I'm scared," she whispered. "I don't know what to do with love like that." He nodded. "Then I'll wait, as long as it takes." Later that night, back in her room, Lily lay awake staring at the ceiling, her heartbeat like a quiet drum. She thought about her father's words. "You met someone who sees how you were meant to live your life." And she realized something. She had spent so long surviving. She forgot what it meant to be chosen, not for what she could give, but for who she was. It started with a yes. Not the kind that echoed in headlines or came wrapped in diamond rings, but a quiet yes, spoken in the glow of a sunrise over the city, as Alexander stood across from her on that same rooftop garden where their worlds first truly collided. "Yes," Lily whispered. "I'm scared, but I'm ready." And with those words, her life shifted, not because of what he could give her, but because she had finally given herself permission to receive it. They didn't announce their relationship in magazines. There was no gala, no staged photograph. Instead, there were long walks through the old neighborhood where Lily grew up, visits to her father at the hospital, where Alex learned how to play dominoes and never once tried to win, and late-night talks under low ceilings about purpose, grief, and hope. Alexander never once tried to change her, and that's what made her change everything for herself. Lily finished her degree in 2 years. She graduated top of her class, walked across the stage in a gown she bought herself, and wore shoes she once only dreamed of trying on. But it wasn't the fashion or applause that made her proud. It was the moment she saw her father in the crowd, tears in his eyes, strength finally returned to his body, and pride radiating from his chest. After the ceremony, she stood before Alex, diploma in one hand, and said, "I'm not just your story, I'm my own." To which he replied, "That's all I've ever wanted to witness." Soon after, Lily joined the Cross Foundation full-time, not as a figurehead or girlfriend, but as the director of outreach. She built programs for underprivileged girls like herself, opening community centers and clinics in forgotten neighborhoods. She made sure no girl with a sick parent had to choose between saving a life or feeding themselves. Her first major project was in Greenfield, the very place where she had once found Alex collapsed in the rain. The city showed up, news crews, politicians, but Lily wasn't there to be a celebrity. She was there to cut the ribbon on a building with her mother's name on it, the Rose Morgan Center for Hope. When asked what inspired the project, she simply replied, "Kindness." And the moment I realized survival doesn't have to be the end of the story, it can be the beginning. 1 year later, in a quiet garden behind the Cross estate, surrounded by a small group of family, friends, and former delivery co-workers who now called her boss, Lily married Alexander Kane Cross. She wore a dress she designed herself. He wore a smile he hadn't worn in years. No thrones, no empire speeches, just two people, hand in hand, remembering that the richest moments are the ones money can't buy. As they exchanged vows, Alex leaned in and whispered, "You changed my world." Lily smiled through tears. "You made me believe I belonged in it." Lily stood one morning at the foundation's balcony, looking over the city that once ignored her, the same city where she had nearly been erased. And now she wasn't just part of the world. She was building it, brick by brick, girl by girl. Behind her, a voice called gently, "Mommy?" She turned. A little boy in pajamas stood holding a crayon drawing. It was her, standing in front of a heart, with the words, "My hero." She picked him up, hugged him close, and whispered, "Let's go see Daddy." Because the girl who once had nothing, now had everything that mattered. Not because she chased wealth, but because she lived with truth, loved with courage, and said yes to the life she never asked for, but always deserved. She was born invisible, raised to survive, not shine. The world mocked her, judged her, called her just a delivery girl. But when she had nothing, she gave everything. Not for money, not for attention, but because her heart didn't know how to turn away. And in return, she wasn't just given a crown. She was given something far rarer, a chance to change lives, starting with her own. So the next time you see someone ordinary, remember, kindness is never small. It just hasn't revealed its miracle yet. And the girl they all looked down on, she became the queen of a life no one saw coming.